Listening to this spin-off may result in you having a dirtier soul, but the fact that you're putting so much effort into cleansing your inner self while leaving your genitals to stew is disappointing. Do not consult a physician. Consult me, Knight of the Flying Pubic Hair, a spin-off of What the Fuck Am I Listening To by Joe Finsternis. It was a dark and stormy night. It was Friday the 13th, October. Paul had been born several years earlier, but he will have no impact on this story. He was 3 doors down, removing a young man's kneecaps with a carpet puller, available for only $19.43 before tax at your local Home Depot. Firuza was preparing for the following evening that she would be spending with her soulmate. She felt very lucky, giddy, and moist. They had been dating for an entire 2 days, and she was finally going to know the feeling of being rocked by his thundercock. On the previous night, she had had a text conversation with him that had gone as such. Firuza. I have kind of a weird question to ask, lol. Firuza's boyfriend. Yes, baby? Firuza. Do you want me to shave my fun box, or would you prefer to explore the jungle? I am reading these texts as they read. There are several spelling errors. Firuza's boyfriend. Shave it smooth like my little sister's. Firuza. Lol, okay. 3 laughing emojis. You're so funny, baby. I lives you. Kissing emoji. Firuza's boyfriend. I love who too, but her what's funny. Firuza had been banged by more hard dicks than she could count, and she had just learned how to count to 4 the previous summer. Her great-aunt had been so proud, but she had never shaved her hoo-hoo before. She was a little nervous. What if she accidentally cut herself and ruined her perfect vagina? What if it scabbed over and looked like a blemish? What if Jimmy thought she had herpes and told everyone at school that she had herpes? Would she have to murder her boyfriend Jimmy? Her anxiety was riding high. She had worked so effortlessly to prevent her actual HPV from breaking out. She applied moisturizing lotion and shaving cream, and armed with nothing but a disposable razor, Firuza braved the wild forest of twisted brambles to gain greater sight of the moist, dark, moist cave within. Moist is a beautiful word, and it deserves to shine as much as it moists. It was an arduous process, one which made her face pop out with moistly moist sweat. I might cease now, in nervous tension. She cut across the 2 hills with precision, not daring to make a single hole in the landscape. After what seemed to span an eternity, she placed the razor by the bathroom sink, wiped away excess shaving cream and nervous cum squirts from her decarpeted lips with a wet towel, and observed her work. My dear Firuza, she thought to herself, this may be your finest achievement. Her pocket kitty was spotless, as pink as an infant's cheek, as smooth to the touch as a flower petal, and as damp as a spot on the floor where the cat had missed the litter box. Not a millimeter of hair remained. Speaking of hair, there was the unpleasant matter of making the evidence disappear. She couldn't have one of her parents walk in and find her pubic hair all over the floor because she'd been too dense to do this job in the bathtub or something. They'd be asking her awkward questions like, "What is this, the 14th boy you're opening your snatch to?" And then she would be really confused because her math skills had not yet advanced so highly. Just as all this was filtering through her tragically underdeveloped brain, Firuza saw something out of the corner of her eye that made her jump. What was that movement? Had the cat snuck in without her noticing? Was her grandmother creeping across the floor like a lizard, as she was wont to do when her straps weren't tight enough? There was nothing there but hair. It was all over the floor, like she had torn up the carpet from between her legs and laid out one over the bathroom tiles. Maybe she had been breathing really hard, and it caused part of the dense black layer of vag hair to stir a bit. Yes, that was it. Pubic hair moving by itself would have simply been stupid. But what the fuck was that? ? They rose in a hive. Each and every one of her millions of salty, sticky pubic hairs were spinning in the air like salty, sticky dandelion seeds that weren't actually dandelion seeds, but were actually individual flying pubic hairs. Veruza didn't know what to do or where to go. She couldn't run for the door because there were too many of the tiny flying puss-puss hairs blocking the way. She might have been able to run through them since they were just hairs, but then she'd have to touch them, and that would have been seriously gross. She looked all around for a way out. Then finally her eyes spotted the path to salvation. At last she knew she would be free from this Harry's situation. 5 seconds later, she fell to the floor and both of her ankles broke with a snap like splitting wood. Veruza's unbearably uneducated mind had deprived her of the essential knowledge that she was too big to flush herself down the toilet. With their prey felled and injured, the hairs descended upon the body which had grown them into existence. They swarmed her flesh and coated her from head to toe. It was as if she was wearing a salty, sticky, putrid onesie. The itch from their touch grew more and more intense. She scratched herself all over, like a person who was itching really badly and needed to scratch. The itch quickly grew into such gargantuan power that it crossed the narrow threshold of pain. Veruza gazed upon her arms and shrieked in terror as she saw her white limbs turn red. The millions of fetid, frizzy hairs were burrowing into her, tangling themselves in her muscles, swimming through the canals of her bloodstream. She reared her head back and howled in explicit agony as several of these impossibly thin worms gnawed away at her bones and rubbed against the edges of her nerves. Her parents weren't home, and her grandmother was too tightly strapped down to her bed to be of any help. The old lady was the only person who heard her final screams, and she joined in the screeching cacophony as outside the lightning flashed, the thunder hammered across the sky, and the indifferent rain washed the land. Paul was happily chewing on a kneecap.